All right, we're going to get started. Hello, and thank you for joining the first annual New Jersey Youth Transition Conference. I'm Katie Calhoun and will be your host for this session, which is support coordination and self-direction, case management for IDD ages 21 plus. I am joined by Values into Action, Amy Jedele, Christina Rappisi, and Marian Saulino. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We encourage you to rename your Zoom profile to include your organization. This helps everyone get a sense of who is participating in the session. In this format, all participants are muted by default. If you would like to communicate with myself or the panelists, please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be answered at the conclusion of the presentation. A recording of these presentations will be available within the next few days on our website. This session, which is www.njyouthtransition.life. This session is also being closed captioned. In order to activate the closed caption feature, please click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen window and click show subtitle. If you need technology support at any point during the conference, you can access our live tech support Zoom room sponsored by Richard West ATAC. The Zoom room link is available on our website on the conference agenda page. Please be patient as there may be many people seeking help at the same time. If you're having technical difficulties now, please first check your sound and try signing out and signing back into the session before visiting the tech support. Oftentimes this fixes the issue. Please note we have a hard stop at 5 minutes before the top of the next hour in order for us to host the next presentation room, although this is the last presentation of the day, if I'm correct. So I'm going to hand it off to our presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amy Jedele, and I am the Resource and Development Director for Values into Action. Joining me is Marian and Christina. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Sure. My name is Christina Rappisi. I am the Director of Support Coordination with Values into Action.
Hi, my name is Marian Saulino. I use the pronouns she and her. I'm a white woman. Not going to tell you how old I am. I'll just say that medium length, dark hair, wearing large silver hoop earrings and a dark navy top. I am sitting in front of a photo which has a lot of colors, abstract art, if you will, with a brick wall also. Very happy to be here. Thanks to all of you for attending this last session of the first day on an otherwise beautiful Friday afternoon, late in the day. So thank you all for being here. Really looking forward to this presentation. So we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. So Values into Action is an organization that my husband Paul and I started in Pennsylvania in 2005 and in New Jersey in 2007. We started the organization, both of us having come from very traditional disability service organizations, primarily supporting adults in congregate settings, both group homes and in day programs. And in the 1990s, so there I just showed my age a little, we were working for this very traditional organization, and we met people who were working as part of the Robert Wood Johnson's Self-Determination Project. And we were fortunate enough in Pennsylvania, where we lived and worked, was one of the counties in Pennsylvania that the Self-Determination Project was being implemented. And I'll spare you all those details because that's like a whole other presentation, but it literally shined the light. And what we learned as participants in that project was really the need to honor and respect the autonomy of people with disabilities and the family members and other people in their support system. And when we say respect autonomy, we really meant that they needed to be at every single table in every single discussion that happened regarding any aspect of their life, certainly of their services and what they were doing. So from how we were thinking about people in terms of what they need, to how we took that thinking into planning, And, you know, we say the term person-centered now a lot. In the 90s, it was really coming into play as a viable perspective, as a professional, and certainly as professional organizations, to really be person-centered. You were still pretty much in the minority. It was still, at least on the adult side of things, very much still professionally driven. So I give this background as a way to say that we ended up leaving that traditional service organization and starting Values into Action because we really saw the momentum and we saw the movement coming from that next generation of people with disabilities and their families, who, while in the school systems, were saying, wait a second, you know, I want my child to be in the neighborhood school, not down the hallway in the life skills classroom necessarily, but in the typical classrooms with typical age peers. What kind of support do we need to do that? Then my kid graduates and I say, well, why would I look for them to go to a group home or a congregate day facility? They belong with typical age peers. And what we need to do is figure out ways to put the support around them so that they are successful and they are safe as contributing members of their communities. Wow, what a radical idea. So that was really the basis on which the organization Values into Action Pennsylvania, as well as Values into Action New Jersey, was founded. In Pennsylvania, we provide direct services, and in New Jersey, we make and continue to make the very conscious decision to remain as one of the only conflict-free support coordination agencies in New Jersey, meaning that that's the only service we provide. So we're not tainted, we're not influenced by any other services that we offer as an organization, because we don't offer any other services as an organization. We are laser focused on the service of support coordination. Amy and Christina are amazing colleagues and professionals with fantastic degrees of expertise, knowledge, and experience. And I'm not just saying that because they're in this session with me. It shows in the everyday provision of the support coordination service. We are one of the original 3 support coordination organizations in New Jersey. And now I think currently there's almost 200 of us, yet we remain one of the most effective and the most sought after organizations, not just because of the history, but because of the experiences that people with disabilities and their families have with us as active partners, meaningful partners in the delivery of the support coordination service. On the right-hand side of this slide are listed our value statements. And as you can see, it's not just the words, but they are the words in the context of action statements. And we take these statements very seriously. These statements thread through how we recruit support coordinators to join our team, through their orientation, through the supervision as a service that they receive being a member of our organization, and really throughout their tenure. You can also see that the word "you" is bolded and is really present in each and every statement, because we really are about the person using services, their families, and other members of their support system. So we are really excited to be here to talk with you a little bit more about the service of support coordination and how that gets done within our agency context. Next slide. Thank you. So before we move to that, I think it's also important to share that Values into Action, along with Neighbors Incorporated and Service Access and Management, founded the Collaborative for Citizen-Directed Supports in 2015. We started this organization as a way to have support coordination agencies come together and be able to have more of an influence and more of an impact in public policy, because what we were seeing as more and more agencies started to implement the service of support coordination, they were lots of times they were typical, they were residential agencies or they were running day programs as well. And so the voice of support coordination tended to get a little overcrowded in that space. And so we started the collaborative really with the core purpose of making sure that not just the voice of support coordination, but support coordinators as the liaison, as the linchpin to people with disabilities using services in the DDD system, the Division of Developmental Disability system, as well as their families, that their voice and their needs were also fully present in policy conversations and in anything that the division was considering. And we have found the division to be an incredible partner. One of the first things that the collaborative did as we started to gain members was we asked the division for a meeting separate from other providers so that we could focus exclusively during that time on the issues of support coordination and the impact that service was having for people and their families. And so that meeting has been ongoing. We now, we work with the division. We provide insight and feedback on proposed policies that affect the service of support coordination and really maintain an open dialogue and partnership with them through to this day. The other thing that the collaborative did in 2017 and 2018 was really extend the invitation for membership out to people with disabilities and their families, and really members of the community that were looking for kind of a place and a space within the disability service system, but maybe didn't quite fit. And I'm talking about community organizations that often were sought out when people were using some of their waiver funding for the goods and services. Maybe somebody wanted to join a gym. And so they are able to use some of their Medicaid dollars to do so. And when we opened up invitation, what we found was people with disabilities, family members, and these community organizations really kind of coming into the space and saying, we really need to talk about what our needs. It's one thing to talk about a program or services, but the system really needs to be responsive to us. And we held community forums across the state, lots of input from families. We were beginning to partner with the division on their charting the life course framework process. And then COVID-19 hit and everything went virtual and all of us stuck at home. And the collaborative said, now what do we need to do? We need to be a resource for people and their families. And pretty early on in the pandemic, as programs were closing, people couldn't go out. Family members also were found to be providing a lot of the care and support that were being provided either in a day program or perhaps in a group home where someone was living. That support just couldn't be accessed. What we also found too was that the direct support professionals who worked in those programs were becoming underemployed or even unemployed. And working together with our membership, the collaborative developed an idea to create an interactive map, basically using a Google map as a way to connect people looking for services with people who wanted to continue providing services and to continue to be employed. That's a whole other presentation too, but I say it here because it's really important. We want you to know that the collaborative is a resource and it is becoming more and more relevant in this time and space as people are looking for alternatives to more traditional services and supports. People are finding that when they take control of their services and supports with support that they need, they're finding more satisfaction with the service and there's better health outcomes. Because if it's one thing COVID has taught us, it's that, sometimes being around groups of people who you don't live with in closed spaces is not good for you. In fact, it can be dangerous. So a lot of people aren't returning to those programs. Instead, they have really seen the value of self-direction and the value of using a tool like the interactive map. And so the collaborative wants to continue to be a resource to people as they exercise their autonomy. So hopefully go to the website. We'll give you information on it. But we really are a growing organization and want to be helpful to people with disabilities, their families, and the professionals who serve them. Next slide. And I think Christina,
Yeah,
you're up to talk about
me.
support coordination.
Okay, so what is support coordination? Marian did a great job at already describing some of what we do. We're really like your sidekick, your soundboard. So you are bouncing ideas off of us. We're helping you to create the vision for the life that you want to live. So who do you want to form relationships with? What types of activities do you want to participate in? Getting out there, making friends. Where do you want to live? Do you want to live in your own apartment? Are you going to stay with your family? Do you want to get a roommate? So it's really talking through the ideas that you have for your life and then putting that into action. So specifically with support coordination, traditionally it was case management. It's now become support coordination. So we do connect you to both paid and unpaid services, whether that be the traditional services that Marian was speaking about, or more self-direction. So we have people that we support. They may want to purchase a gym membership or attend an art class or take an acting class, music classes, horseback riding. It doesn't have to be your traditional day program, group home type of service. It's really anything and everything. So if there was a local yoga studio that you wanted to see if they would be willing to participate with DDG funding, we would go about helping you set that up. So really building personal relationships, both within your families, outside in the community, and self-directing. So really putting your vision of your life into practice. And a little bit more about what do support coordinators do. So again, as I mentioned, we are helping you spend your DDD funding. So connecting to services, inputting services for you, finding out all the things that make you, you. We put that all into writing so that other people who are coming in and supporting you know what you like, know what you don't like, right? What type of person supports you best? How do certain people make you feel? What is exciting for you? What doesn't make you feel all that good? So that people can really support you the best way. The people that we are supporting currently, they're in the supports program and the community care program. And so once you're set up with the program through DDD, you're transferred over to us, and then we take it from there, which Amy is going to go through.
I think this is back to me first, I think, before Amy. Thank you, Christina. What I always find too, and when I hear Christina talk about what support coordinators do, I'm often struck because I think they play such a vital role. And Christina has been both a support coordinator and now as the director of support coordination services for Values into Action. It's really how the support coordinator comes to know and develop a relationship with the person and family too. And that's just been awesome when I'm lucky enough to be able to hear the stories and sometimes even getting invited into, some of the situations and the problem solving that support coordinators do. And certainly the leaders in our organization, all of whom have been support coordinators, which is, I think, another thing that's like really important too, is that you, Christina, have that real life experience and expertise and the knowledge that you gain from actually providing the service. So it's the relationships, it's being really able to translate a person's vision. And I think for people working in our organization, some of whom have come through the Charting the Life course training series and are now considered ambassadors. So they use a lot of best practices, and we're on the forefront, if you will, of kind of the effective planning tools. So I don't know if participants know of charting the life course framework, but it's a form of person-centered planning that really considers kind of the ongoing need. Like transition doesn't just happen once, right? Like this conference is really focused on the school into adult, which is like such an incredibly important time in somebody's life, and we can't pay enough attention to that time period and planning for it. And Christina, not in this session, obviously, but certainly you as an ambassador will be speaking to the importance of really looking at all of the milestones that happen in this journey. And so it's been incredible to see too, that over time, how the role of the supports coordinator is really evolving. And so that was really cool. So I wanted to thank Christina too for describing it so well. In many cases, what we do as a support coordination agency is, yes, we're responsible for developing the individual support plan. And yes, that support plan has to contain information about you, about the person, about the situation. But the other thing that we really try and emphasize too is like from the person's perspective. So from the person using services, from the family's perspective, what is really important to them? And in understanding and developing a relationship with each person in their family, the support coordinator is then really well positioned to say, okay, given what I now know about what is important to the person from their perspective, as well as what's important for this person. So what do we need to do to really help them stay well, help them stay safe, especially as they begin to transition into adulthood. The support coordinator can then look at what are those resources, what are the services, what are the supports? And as Christina said, some of them are formal disability specific services, and those are incredibly important to people. We also look outside of the system to the people, the places, and the things that exist in every single one of our neighborhoods and communities. You know, there's people who know the communities, who know the resources, and the support coordinator really tries to travel, if you will, that journey with the person and with their family and with their support system. As Christina mentioned, a really important point of discussion oftentimes is, so where do you want to live? You know, we often meet people, they're living at home with their families, but it's time for a change. The person may want to change. The family may say, look, circumstances are changing. We really need to think about this person's future. And the typical system, as it has been for many decades, is group home or facility. And oftentimes that's the go-to. You know, there's lots of agencies, there's good people, you know, providing residential services. But in our organization, we really try to focus on what is it that you want. Do you want to live with people who you may not know and you may not get along with simply because you share a medical diagnosis, you know? And oftentimes what we find when we have those kinds of more in-depth conversations and we focus more on those aspects in our planning, we find that that's really not what the person wants, and it's not what the family wants. It's just that they may not know that there's any other alternative. They may not know that the waiver services do offer other opportunities for people to use services. And Christina focused on self-direction too. As an agency, an organization, we are very much focused on advancing self-direction and in helping people understand that even though the word self is in the title, doesn't mean you're out there alone. The support coordinator can connect you to a supports broker. A supports broker helps you with the day-to-day aspects of taking control of your own services. Christina also mentioned, what are the resources in one's community? Does the person want to work and not just work? Let's talk about career. Has the person had an opportunity to explore career interests? And again, it's why a conference like this is so important, because connecting the educational system with the adult system is critical in helping youth and helping their families understand that there are options besides day facilities for people to go and people to continue learning about all of the career options that may be available to them, and learning and exploring and maybe getting a job with or without support, depending upon what's needed. But the role of the support coordinator is really to understand, again, from the person's perspective, what's important, what is needed, to help that person reach their aspirations, and then to translate that into a plan and then into action steps to help the person achieve that. Another thing Christina focused on was making friends. We often don't talk about that for people with disabilities. Sometimes the system is so focused on kind of like fixing, or, this person needs to learn to do this before they can do that. And our team really says, friendships and being part of meaningful relationships are important to everybody. We're all constantly learning and growing, or hopefully we are. And if we had to do that in the absence of friendships or acquaintances, that would be a pretty lonely life. So again, I think our organization really focuses on the values. And a big value of ours is really respecting the person for who they are. Regardless of the diagnosis, we presume competence, and we're going to work with you, with your family, and with your support system to really help you find the things that are meaningful in your life. And it takes time. Sometimes mistakes are made. Oh, okay, well, we'll never go to that place again because we thought that was really going to work out for you and it didn't. And the support coordinator helps to organize that activity, even if they're not in every single activity. They're also monitoring to make sure that the quality of those services that people are using to reach their outcomes are actually doing what they need to be doing. So we're hoping this has given you, a picture of what this service does, because it is really, it's an important one. And when we look at it somewhat non-traditionally, it really opens up opportunities to help people explore opportunities that they may not have even realized was possible. And now to you, Amy.
I think,
Thank you.
okay, good, you're unmuted. All right.
Sorry about that. Tech issues, had to leave and come back. On this slide here, you see 2 screenshots of webinars that we host based on transition. We have collaborated with Division of Developmental Disabilities and Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services to give you a condensed version of what transition processes are available for youth, generally ages 14 and up. And you can find a recording of this on our YouTube channel. This is an excellent resource to share with students, adolescents, young adults, and families that are in the transition process. So generally learn the basics about transition. And then for students and youth that are more medically involved, we hosted a transition workshop with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia to talk about the medical transition services that they offer to students, as well as in collaboration with support coordination services. Again, both of these are excellent resources to share for students and families, but also for yourselves if you'd like some more information and detail on transition. Those recordings are available on the YouTube channel. Next, I should mention also, we do a condensed version and discussion with educational components for Rutgers Children's System of Care. We offer that 3 times a year. The next workshop will be coming up, I believe it's November 2nd. You can go to Rutgers Children's System of Care, check out their trainings, and we should be listed there to register. It's free for students, families, and professionals to attend those workshops that Rutgers hosts. Next slide, please, Christina.
Okay. For that. So this slide is about how do I obtain a support coordinator and get started. So before you make it to us, you would choose or you are assigned to a support coordination agency. We always recommend obviously to choose who you want to work with versus having the division choose for you, because you will be assigned to whatever support coordination agency is available and open at that time. There is a support coordination agency selection form that you would fill out and submit. You would put your first two choices on there, and then you submit it to DDD, and then they would assign you to us within the system. At that point, we would then reach out, introduce ourselves, and set up a meeting with you so that we can get to know you. And you would provide us with details, as we discussed earlier, about things that you're interested in doing, things that you like to do, things that you may need a little bit of help doing, things you absolutely don't want to do, right? So that would be our time to get together and discuss what you see as your future. And then we use all of that information to put into what's called an individual service plan, as well as person-centered planning tool. So we would combine all that info for those two documents, and then we would connect you to services, as we were also mentioning earlier. And as Marian had mentioned earlier about the monitoring of services with support coordination, and say, you know, something isn't working out and you thought that it was going well with maybe a support worker that was coming and taking you out into the community, and then you're like, this isn't really working for me. We would be involved in that process. So you would reach out to us. We'd talk through the issues or concerns you're having, and then we would have a conversation with the team, right, with the provider, to say, hey, these are the things that are working. These are the things that aren't working. I would like to look for something else. So at that time, we would help to connect you with maybe a different provider if it wasn't working out with a particular provider, or a different service altogether. It's good to keep in mind that no matter what service we put into the plan, you're not locked into it. You can change it at any time. You can end the service, you can edit the service, you could revise the amount of hours someone is coming to visit with you. So say you go strong and you want 30 hours a week, and then you're realizing there's too much for this person to be in my space. They're here every day. I don't really want to see them every day. Then you just let us know and we would scale it back accordingly. So you really have full control over your funding, and we are there to help support you in those decisions, but ultimately your choice what you're going to end up doing with the funding per services of DDD. There are some rules and regulations, obviously, that the division have in place. There are certain things that you can't purchase, right, with the funding, but that's also what we help you understand. A lot of times we have people that are transitioning from school, and it's overwhelming, right? Because you have someone with you sort of holding your hand through that entire school process. And then you get to the adult world and it's self-direction. So you're doing things on your own, and people are asking you, what do you want to do? And sometimes people are like, I don't know. I never really thought about it. I don't even know where to start. There's so many things that I can do, that this is all just being sort of thrown at you, right? So we're there to walk you through it step by step. At Values, we really like to tackle one thing at a time, because it is overwhelming. So we normally say, you know what, let's do this first, get this in place, get these services going, see how it's going for you, if you're liking it or not, and then add to it from there and add to it from there. So just wanted to add that. Now we'll go to the next slide. Okay, Amy.
Thank you, Christina. This you see a screenshot of the virtual transition portal, which is different than the Vendor Village resource guide that has been developed for the Youth Transition Conference. I'm going to make this available under the registration link on our website. So where you went onto njyouhtransition.life and you registered using that button, that button going forward will be replaced with a link to this transition portal. It contains over 35 resources that have been curated through various system, state, and stakeholders. Included in this resource guide will be the support coordination selection form that you can share with people and families. There's also a sample of the NJCAT, so you can share that with your students and families to help prepare them for what questions would be asked of them that determines ultimately their DDD budgets that support coordination agencies use to create an individual service plan. You also have information specific here for graduates. There's a graduate timeline in here for you. There are PowerPoints from prior transition webinars that we've hosted. There's also information on how to qualify for Medicaid. In order to access support coordination services, one must qualify for DDD, the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And in order to qualify for DDD, you must qualify for Medicaid. So there's information in that folder as well. Again, you do not need to email me. You're welcome to, but I will have this live for you available on the website. Next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. We actually did create this first annual New Jersey Youth Transition Conference. We're hoping to do this annually each year for you. I am very honored and blessed to have the support of Values into Action to help me bring this vision to life. This came to me in inspiration, having come from the youth world. I worked as a youth provider, and I found that when I personally transitioned into the adult world to provide services through support coordination, there was a lot of information that was, if not entirely different, if not a completely different world in the adult world. And I felt very overwhelmed, and I felt like I had a really good handle in the youth world. And when I came over here and moved into the adult world of services, it was like starting off in kindergarten. I didn't know a lot of information. And so I thought the best way to really help us as professionals and to help the youth and families in transition would be to bring all state and system stakeholders that provide services in the youth world as well as the adult world into one format and one operation, which the Youth Transition Conference was born from. We are blessed to have the collaboration and assistance from 4 care management organizations, including Ocean Partnership for Children, Partnership for Children of Essex, I affectionately refer to as my alma mater, Monmouth Cares, as well as Camden Partnership for Children. We encourage you to share this information with your students and families, and you are welcome to register for tomorrow's sessions, which some of the presenters are listed on the right-hand side of your screen there. The registration is still open if you'd like to join for tomorrow. These recordings will also be available on the website over the next few days, starting next week. And there are resources that you can revert back to and also share with your students and families as well. Next slide, please, Chris. We want to share with you our social media accounts. This is where you can get more information, specifically the YouTube channel. The Youth Conference also has its own YouTube channel where we'll be hosting the different workshops that we've had here today and tomorrow. You can stay connected to us through these handles. And just wanted to, Christina, I think this is our last slide. Yes, thank you. If you want to close out your PowerPoint, that would be great so that we can all come together and connect. Thank you.
Amy, I was going to say there is some Q&A, and then someone had their hand raised as well. And
yeah,
I'm not sure.
Just have a few more things to share with you before we get to Q&A, because I think we have about 15 or 20 minutes left. I wanted to acknowledge the power that you guys have in the youth world as professionals to share resources with your students and families. And really, as I shared with you, having come from the youth world, not knowing about self-directed services, which we're going to share information and details with you on now. Generally speaking, we're only told as professionals about the congregate settings, about group homes and day programs. And we really want to make sure that everyone in the workshop and students and families are aware that there are alternatives to congregate settings, and that's the self-directed services. So we'll talk now about some of the experiences that we share, that we have experienced as well with students that come into us, our services at age 21, and we have folks that we're supporting all the way up into, I think, what, their 70s and 80s at this point, right, guys?
For sure. We have a couple people in their 80s. Which is always nice. People have been with us for a long time. And so they become like part of your family. When you call them, it doesn't feel like you're having like this professional dialogue. It's just like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? How you been? How's the family? And that's really ultimately what we hope for with the people that we support, is that they feel comfortable enough to come to us should they have a concern. And then we can talk through it and figure it out together, and they don't have to feel alone in the process. Because like Amy was saying, when people come from the youth world, we hear it all the time with families. It's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. What do I do first? And they have all of these things that they want to tackle, and it makes it very overwhelming for everyone, right? So we'll just start one by one, setting up one thing at a time, seeing how it's going, and continuing to move forward. And a lot of times when people see their DDD funding, they're like, I'm never going to spend this in a year. There's no way. And they get nervous about that maybe what happens if I don't spend all of it in that first year. And I always try to tell people, you know, it's okay, because not everyone comes in knowing what exactly they want to do. And so over time, one day you're going to look back, maybe next year, 2 years from now, and you're going to say, wow, I'm actually spending my entire budget. How did that happen? I didn't even know one thing to do when I first came to you. So it takes time. It's a process, just like with anything else, but that's what support coordination is there to provide for you. I did see a question in the chat. Is that okay if I answer?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It looks, yeah.
About
However we wanna do
the
that.
PPP. Yeah, there was one person asking for advice about pursuing the personal preference program. So the personal preference program is through your Medicaid insurance. You would want to contact your HMO and ask to speak to your care manager. Everyone is assigned a care manager, so you can have that direct contact. They'll transfer you to them, and then you say that you would like to sign up for the personal preference program. They will set up an appointment. They'll come out, they'll do an assessment to determine how many hours, if any hours, the person is entitled to. And then from there, you would set up the representative, person signing off, person providing the service. And it is a lengthy process from what families tell us. It is outside of support coordination, but we always we know how to get you there, right? So we'll point you in that direction. And that's also too something with support coordination is we may not be able to do the process for you, but we can point you in the direction to take, right? So calling your care manager, setting up that appointment, and then from there, they'll determine how many hours the person's entitled to. It's important too to know, sometimes people do the personal preference program, and sometimes people choose to go through a home health aid agency. So that would be personal care assistance, PCA. But then you are connected with a home health aid agency that would provide those hours. So it's one or the other. If you do have personal preference hours, that's fantastic, but they cannot overlap with your PPP funded services. So if someone is working through the PPP program from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock, Monday through Friday, your next service wouldn't be able to start until 2 o'clock. So if you had another person coming in through your DDD budget, they would start at 2 o'clock. So they just can't overlap because they're both Medicaid funded services. So it would be considered double dipping, but you can have access to both services, so.
There's another question Sandra asks about the YouTube URL.
I can answer that. You have a custom-made URL with YouTube until you have a certain amount of followers and subscribers, and we don't have that quite yet. So in order to access the YouTube channel for Values into Action specifically, or even the youth conference, you would just need to search in there on the actual YouTube page, either Values into Action New Jersey, and you'll see the recordings of transition webinars we've done in the past, or for future reference, the New Jersey Youth Transition Conference, and you'll see the recordings from today and tomorrow's sessions.
And then I might only be reading part of this, Sandra, so please type again if it says and or want to learn more. And maybe we answered that because Amy did put up the social media contacts. Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
No worries. She was asking about PPP and Christina answered that.
Gotcha. Okay.
In the chat there to let folks know that there is a webinar tomorrow on PPP specifically. You're welcome to register.
Good.
That's great. And then Daiquiri, I hope I'm saying your name right. That's such an awesome name. Who says, my heart is full. This is amazing. Well, thank you. I mean, this is why conferences, forums like this are so important, right? Because information is critical to helping people make informed choices. And you all do such important work in your professional roles within the education system. And we're waiting for you here, you know, and we're ready to welcome people as they are transitioning. But oftentimes it is hard because there is so very much. We hear it from families all the time, like, how am I expected to like keep all this information? And it's like, well, that's part of why we're here, is that we can help. And if you need for us to kind of keep telling you things, you know, we'll keep telling you things. Like Christina said, the role of the support coordinator isn't to do things for you. It's really to guide and to assist and to, again, translate with. It's such an important responsibility that we have to translate the person's hopes, their aspirations. You know, what does the family want for their child? What do you as the professionals who maybe have known them most of their lives, you know, what is important to you for this child? And how do we work together? The support coordinator really sits in the midst of that and helps to facilitate the planning, facilitate problem solving. You know, when it's done well, things work. And that's what we're really focused and committed to being the best possible support and the best possible resource. It doesn't mean everything works perfectly. As all of us know in real life, it often doesn't work. But it's having that support system often that makes all the difference. You know, people are going to make the wrong decisions, right? People are going to try something and not like it and then want to change, and then they change and they think, wow, I should have never done that. You know, these are all the things that in the day-to-day experience of a support coordinator and those supporting them are often up against, because we want people to know and to understand this is your life. We may think we know, and we may know that's not going to work out for this person. We know it's not going to work out, but it's their right. It's their right to try it. And certainly with the use of waiver funding, a central tenet in that is choice of provider. And I'm sure Christina could tell you numerous stories about how people are like, nope, this is what I want. This is the provider. They go and they're like, that's not working out. And we're like, we would never say we told you so, because that's not our role, right? Our role is to say, all right, come on, let's come back to the table. Let's talk about what were the aspects of the service or the service provider that you did like, because we want to keep those intact. What are the things that you're learning you really don't want? You know, when we talk about self-direction, again, the word self in that title is often misleading, because it's not about the person being able to know everything they need to know about running payroll. They're not running payroll. But they do need to understand that if they are going to direct their services and they are going to hire or co-employ a direct support professional, that there is some responsibility that they have to make sure that the worker gets a schedule, that the worker understands what the job is, that the worker does the documentation they need to do, and that they maintain their payroll records accurately. But like we said, the support coordinator can connect the person, even in self-direction. The support coordinator can connect the person to the resources, such as a supports broker, that can help them with managing all of that. So we're glad this has been helpful. And we also know that sometimes you leave sessions like this and you have more questions than you had coming in. And that's why Amy is amazing at what she does, because she means it. If you do email her, she will email you back. And she has curated an amazing array of resources, both for you as professionals, as well as for people with disabilities and their families. Oh, this is great. You're getting good feedback. Dagger, you are so kind to be putting all this very nice stuff. And George, yes, I am very animated. Thank you for being positive about it. That's not always the way I'm described. But yeah, for a Friday afternoon, it's 4:22. Yes, I'm a bit animated. And these are the kinds of opportunities that, well, one, it makes me so proud, because like I said, I'm not just saying this about Christina and Amy, I mean it. They are great partners and colleagues, and this is not easy. It's not easy work, right? There's hard stuff. And we don't have to talk about the times we're living in, right? I mean, it gets complicated, it gets stressful, it gets really, really difficult. And again, these kinds of forums really help me to appreciate even more the really good work that Amy and Christina and all of our colleagues at Values do. And I like talking about stuff that works. And I think that this role is so critical in not just the adult system, but in the disability service system. And far too often, this service it's not paid enough attention to. It's a lot of administrative work that we as an organization try really hard to make it as streamlined and as easy for the support coordinators to fill out all the documentation and do all the things they have to do, because we know that the most important thing here, as Christina has said, is that relationship that the coordinators have with people and their families. So my kids also say I talk when no one's listening, so somebody better cut me off at 4:23, because I'll just keep right on going. But thank you, George and Zachary and everybody for being a part of this.
All right, I guess that wraps things up. I hope everyone enjoyed this presentation, and thank you again for participating. And a huge thank you to Values into Action, not just for the presentation, but really taking the lead on organizing this youth conference. It's been a long time coming, and Amy's been amazing at taking the lead and herding us cats all together and trying to keep us on track. Great job. We really appreciate it. And also be sure to check out the rest of the Youth Transition Conference tomorrow. It is for families, but anyone can go, professionals as well. So please join us. There are additional workshop and information can be found on the website again, www.njyouthtransition.life. And additional resource information in our virtual resource guide can be found in our vendor village, also located on the website. So again, thank you so much to everyone for participating, and I hope to see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.